Okay, you're good.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? All right, good afternoon. We'll call this meeting to order. The time is officially 3:12 p.m. for the Region 14 Upper Rio Grande Flood Planning Group General Meeting. We'll go with agenda item number 1. Let's call order. Agenda item number 2, public comments. Anyone from the public have any comments? Anything they want to address, bring up? Anybody? I hear nothing. Going on to agenda item number 3, Rio Grande COG approve the minutes for the September 9th meeting. Aaron?
So with this mic here.
If there's no input from anyone, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Meeting minutes are approved. Thank you, everybody. Agenda item number 4, Texas Water Development updates from Nick Collins. Nick, go ahead.
Actually, before I give my update,
I'll bring it.
okay. Aaron, I think he's trying to get, you can share that screen. Yes. And before I give my update, we have, Director Morgan here, with Texas Water Development Board, and she will say a few words.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here. And for those of you who may not be aware, I've only been on the board about a month. And I'm pleased to tell you all that El Paso is the first visit that I've made as a board member. And y'all have set the bar very, very high for everyone else I will visit over my tenure as a board member. And it has been wonderful. I see some of my friends that I've met from El Paso County and El Paso Water, and it has been wonderful. We've been here since Tuesday. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to say hello to you all. And I'm going to apologize now that we have to go very quickly. We've been here since Tuesday. We have a 6 o'clock flight. We're not exactly sure what we're going to see when we get to the airport. And so, but at least while we were here, we just had a financial assistance workshop that was wonderful. And I took notes because I'm still learning. And so we were here for that and said we at least have to stay for a few minutes and say hello to everyone and just tell you thank you for your hospitality and also for your delicious meals. If I stayed any longer, my pants would not fit. And so we have had a lovely, wonderful time. This has been so valuable for me. I think that the team agreed, and we're here to assist. We're here to help. We have a wonderful team here in El Paso to help you all today, and just let us know how we can assist in the future. We appreciate all you're doing.
Yeah.
Say a little background on yourself.
Sure. Again, Ashley Morgan. I have been in and out of state government for 30 years. I really shouldn't admit that. I'm showing my age. I started in Lieutenant Governor Rick Perry's office when I was very young, worked in and out of the Capitol for a bit, went to law school, and then worked in several state agencies. So I worked at TCQ, Railroad Commission, worked in the Attorney General's office, and then when Attorney General Greg Abbott became governor, I moved over to the governor's office and have worked in governmental affairs, private sector, for about the last 8.5 years. Grew up in East Texas on the water, and so always loved water, always loved the issue, worked on the issue whenever I could. And then finally could get back to it. So now I'm living, breathing, and eating it. And I'm so excited, and I hope to continue to do that for as long as the governor will allow me. And just appreciate so much being able to see all different parts of the state. Obviously, El Paso is very different from what I grew up with in East Texas, as is North Texas and South Texas and Central Texas, from flooding to water supply to wastewater and everything in between. So I'm excited to be able to learn all the things I don't know yet, and appreciate folks like yourself getting me there. Absolutely. Thank y'all so much. But I'm having a great time. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Director Morgan.
Good luck. Fly running.
Thank you.
All right, back to our regularly scheduled broadcasting. The TWB flood planning staff hosted MS2 model upload workshop with the Texas Disaster Information System, or TDIS, on Wednesday, November 5th, 2025, from 2 to 3 p.m. Hopefully, whoever attended, and if you didn't, please reach out to me and I can get you the agenda as well as what happened. The technical memo is due to the board on January 7th, 2026. The 7-day public notice requirement for meeting to vote on technical memo acceptance. And then on October 2nd, 2025, the Texas Water Development Board approved an item related to Task 5B to negotiate and execute contracts for consultants to perform FMEs for small and rural communities as selected by the RPGs. And then TWB also hosted a technical conference call on 9/12. The recording slides are available on our second cycle floodplain page, and I can drop that in the chat as well. One thing I did want to know, I did do a regional flood, a FME small communities presentation for Region 15. I was going to be doing it for Region 6 as well, but I'll be taking vacation during their RPG meeting. If y'all would like me to do it for Region 14 as well at the next RPG meeting, I would be more than happy to. I'll be covering what the effort is, what the funding is, and then I can answer any questions. And I'll be happy to answer any questions currently. But I believe that's all my updates.
Sure.
Yeah,
Let's plan.
I will pencil in. Oh,
And that, we got to make sure we get that into the agenda then for the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I think you have the next item too.
discussion updates on voting vacancies.
No, number 6.
Oh, I was in this one.
Oh, the voting member vacancies we got to do.
5 and 6 are real con.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, Real Cogs. Yeah.
Okay, still got to do that.
yes. Okay, so thank you, Nick. Going on to agenda item number 5, Red Cog, discussion and updates on voting member vacancies. Eric?
Yes, we have reached out. Yes, we have reached out to 2 individuals to fill these vacancies. One being Mr. Albert Miller from Horizon City. That was Javier that sent an email, and we got a response that he just has too many duties, too much on his plate to be able to fill this vacancy. So we need to continue working on that vacancy.
Which one is that?
That would have been municipalities.
Municipalities. Okay.
So we're still working through that. And it could have also fallen in within industry, correct? So we were working through, see how we were gonna, either give an industry or municipality in regards to that. In regards to agricultural interests, we are working with Dr. Santosh Palmate from A&M Extension Service. We want to make sure that A&M fully vets Dr. Palmate to be properly as a voting member in the planning group. And that directive came from my executive director, Annette, because we have tried to do this before with A&M, but for some reason, there seems to be some bylaws in the A&M statutes that forbids that, I guess. So we want to make sure that Dr. Palmate reaches out to them again, just to make sure that we're good to follow through with this endeavor. He was supposed to be on this meeting to give us an update, but he's at a conference. So I'm just assuming that either he had to continue his presentation or answer further questions, whatever have you, that didn't allow him to be on this meeting. But he should have been able to provide us with an update if he was here. So we'll get further information on that, but I'm fairly confident that we'll work something out that he's on as a voting member, and we'll be able to move forward, and then we'll continue working on municipalities and industry.
It's interesting because we've had, in the water planning group, we had an A&M voting member. So I would think if they could have been a voting member in the water planning group, they should be able to be in the flood planning group too,
Well,
unless they change their bylaws.
actually, that's because we're Grand Cog, when I took over water planning group, I was informed by A&M that they were ex officio members for the water plan. Yes, sir.
Okay, poor recollection.
It happens.
Yeah, okay, all right.
So, yes. Didn't Sal also say that he may need to, Sal Masud also, that he needs to step down as well? So do we need to start looking for somebody to replace him?
Well, Mr. Salmasud was in district,
Oh, okay.
so that's why we needed to get to work to fill his position.
So it'll be either municipality or industry,
Yeah.
that one. Okay.
Chairman Acosta is willing to, he's currently municipalities, correct? And so he's willing to move over to industry, depending on the situation, voting after that.
Oh, I see how you're coordinating it, okay,
Okay.
I understand, okay.
Yeah, so I have a couple of other things we'll work on, candidates and stuff, so them to keep working.
Great, thank you.
Any other feedback from any other members on that? Nothing, thank you. We'll go on to agenda item number 6, Rio Grande COG. Discussion and update on the Upper Rio Grande Roadshow and for today.
Yes, the road show is still scheduled for today here at 5 p.m. We took advantage of this area or this location to facilitate it, and we're really excited. So thank you very much.
Looking forward to that coming up. Thank you. Anything else from anybody else? We'll go on to agenda item number 7, ACOM. Provide general RFP updates, critical dates, and required meeting dates. Luis,
That would be Travis.
Travis,
Can you guys all see the screen here?
hold on a
Wonderful.
second.
He needs to make.
You want to, yeah, click on that.
Okay, we got it. Go ahead.
Okay. These are the discussion items that we'll be including in this. These include various agenda items. The first one is general RFP updates. So these are the significant dates. On the left here, we have deliverables and important submissions to TWDB. Earlier this year, we're supposed to receive a notice of acceptable amendment. I don't believe that was received. I don't think that's something we're going to be doing. It was on the calendar here. The next is the technical memorandum due January 7th. So Nick mentioned this earlier. Our goal in this is not to have a meeting on January 7th or around there, but instead to have it on December 3rd. You can see on the right there, 2025 for technical memorandum by January 7th, 2026. So this will make sure that we don't have to schedule something over the holidays, and then we'll have plenty of time to address comments or make any changes, but we're hoping to get this in front of you and voted on before the holiday rush. Following that, we would like to do another meeting in January at some point. So Aaron, if you'd be able to send out a poll for that, and then if anyone has any comments on dates that they would or wouldn't be available. Following that, we're going to need a meeting. I'd recommend either the 26th of February or March 12th. And so these would be to approve the recommendations for FMEs to be performed by TWDB by March 26th. So this again references the FMEs that Nick was discussing. So these would be 2 FMEs to start with to be performed on behalf of the region and the communities by TWDB. And so there will be a chance to recommend 2 of them, the intent being rural or small communities that would not be able to get this performed another way. And so we'll be, as we identify FMEs, as we put these together, we'll present some options for you guys to vote on in the beginning of next year. Following that, we skip all the way over to 2027 on May 13th for the draft 2027 RFP due to TWDB, and then the December 16th to adopt and submit the RFP for the final one. Before we move on to the next agenda item, are there any comments or questions?
I have a quick question before we send the doodle poll for January meeting. We're looking second, third week, January, fourth week, January. What do you?
Any of those times would be acceptable to us.
Okay, and you want me to send that in December, I'm assuming, after our meeting in December?
Whenever you guys feel like it's the right time. I know a lot of people are, putting together holiday schedules, probably not out to January just yet. But that'll be the next one that we have to decide coming up. And I'd prefer to have it agreed on before the December 3rd meeting.
Understood. Thank you, Travis.
I guess I have a question. Is everybody available right now? Can you say you're available for December 3rd? Anybody not available?
We already have one, we already have it scheduled.
Yes, it's been scheduled.
I understand. I just would double check just to make sure we're not going to have trouble with
Like,
it.
I haven't here.
Okay. All right. That sounds like we're good. Okay.
I'm ready to move on to the next agenda item. The
Agenda
next
item-
one.
Go ahead, Travis. Sorry.
So the next one is updates on proposed or ongoing flood mitigation projects in the region. This is agenda item number 8. So these are projects in the region that are identified as like seeking funding or in design or construction. And so the sources are, master plans, you guys and the RFPG members, public survey or roadshow meetings. So I was able to send a list. So you guys should have gotten this, and it should also be posted online with a current table of ongoing or proposed construction projects. There are a couple that we're still trying to confirm the status of. But if you could review this list and make any additions or removals, if you know of any, projects that are, upcoming or something like that. I know this is going to be most relevant to our representatives from El Paso Water and El Paso County, as you guys are doing a large portion of the work here. And so if you want to take a look at this or send it around, we would appreciate the feedback here. This isn't something that, TWDB is going to rely upon for making decisions or, making choices or like to develop work going forward, but just kind of to get a better understanding of what the status is in each region. And so we would appreciate your help in filling this out so we can include it. That is all for this agenda item. Any comments or questions? Yep, I'm going to go on to the next one. So this is agenda item number 9, and I'm going to hand it over to Monica Guido.
Hi, good afternoon. Just a couple quick updates on task 2A and 2B. 2A is existing conditions. Here on the right, we have a summary map showing the various data sources we combined to create our existing flood quilt for the region. So that has been completed, and we have our existing flood quilt, and we submitted our memorandum to the TWDB on September 19th, 2025. The methodology was reviewed and accepted by the TWDB on October 22nd. And the flood quilt is mostly completed. We're just attributing a few final things such as different stream types, and we are starting our analyses with the existing flood quilt. So if you had a chance to read the memo, you may have seen this figure, but if not, here's a summary of the different data sources that were used. I think this slide is complete, Travis. We can go to the next one. We don't have a pretty picture on this one, but this is the future condition flood risk analysis. This one, we did develop a memorandum. We submitted it last week on October 30th. The memorandum has been briefly reviewed by the TWDB, and we do need to make an update to just add a little bit of detail to one section. But overall, we've talked through our methodology, and they seem to agree. We are modeling the El Paso County future condition using the available FEMA models, and we are using updated land use and rainfall, or future projection of land use in 2060, as well as increased rainfall to model the future conditions. Those runs are in progress, and we're hoping those model runs are completed by early or mid-November 2025. And so the big picture is that we are using a combination of two data sources. We're using future condition model runs inside El Paso County, and then we're using the Fathom data for the rest of Region 14 outside of El Paso County. And then we hope to have the flood quilt developed for the future conditions by the end of November.
I have a question, Monica. So
Yes.
The future conditions will have a 20% rainfall increase. What did you base that 20% on?
It was based on a couple of different studies. There was one combined study out of I think it's Texas A&M, Rice, and TWDB study of future rainfall, and there was a draft presentation that was given at TWDB in 2024, and there was some preliminary data that showed a 20% increase in the El Paso region. The data actually, there were some other studies that indicated 20% for some urban areas. We did find sources that had varying depictions of what that future would be, that future rainfall. I think overall it was like more intense rainstorms, but overall maybe less rainfall. But of the various sources that we looked at, we chose the most conservative estimate that we could find for this analysis. And it is consistent with what we did in phase 1.
Okay, and this 20% is this 20% increase is from what you're using today. And can you remind me if you're using DDM numbers or if you're using Atlas 14?
We are using a 20% increase over what is present in the FEMA models, and the FEMA models have a combination of DDM rainfall where the DDM rainfall is applied, and then where outside of the DDM region, I believe it's Atlas 14.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just as an aside, the Farmer's Almanac says it's supposed to be a wetter year in 26 also. Very interesting, all the way up into Colorado potentially, which is good for snow melt, hopefully. We'll see. I don't know how accurate it is, but they are saying it.
It's
How we get up so.
yeah.
If there are no additional comments, I'll move on to the next agenda item. Thank you, Monica.
You're welcome.
So the next one is updates on Task 3, Flood Mitigation, Floodplain Management Goals. So one of the things that we looked at when assessing the goals from the previous cycle and reviewing them this year is that a lot of the goals had some shortcomings when it came to specificity and measurement. So we have, for example, this top one here, increase NFIP participation or adoption of equivalent standards with 90% communities meeting qualifying standards. And we agree with this goal, but it's a 10-year goal with a target year, and we just say applicable to entire RFPG. And so one of the things we wanted to do is make that more specific. So we wanted to list, the communities that were not participating in the NFIP at this time, and the steps that they would need to take so that we could develop, an FME to target those specific communities. And then there's another one down there. The third one, increase the number of communities that have adopted higher than NFIP minimum standards. Again, it's kind of vague, just increase over 10 years without saying like here are the specific steps. So our goal is to, add new goals, to recommend new goals to be added. This is through survey data that we've gotten back, public meetings, and our PG interaction. So if there's anything you guys want to say or add in this, and to quantify the current status of existing goals, to say, hey, where are we on these to present this to you? Have we met any of the goals? Are we making appropriate progress on these goals to say, do we need to change them? And to create a status table for each one and to update or revise the target year, but then to modify any existing goals that we have to be more specific and achievable, to better define, the way we want to go forward. So one of the impacts that we expect this to have is we recommend FMEs based on the goals that we set here to say this is what's important to this region, and here are the FMEs that support it. So as we move forward with the goals, we're going to be looking at specifying what FMEs we want to recommend TWDB perform, what FMEs we want to recommend for the Flood Infrastructure Fund, and that going forward. And it's broadly going to follow these goals here. So if there are any changes, any specific modifications or target communities that we want to address, that's kind of the effect this has. And this also goes to TWDB to show what's important to this region and how we rank and how we specify these. Here are some more goals. Here's the list of all the goals. These are just the descriptions. They don't have the target years on here. And so we see a lot of these increase the number of communities that have adopted higher than NFIP standards, increase the number of communities enrolled in the CRS program. A lot of just kind of vague goals here, increase the number of flood gauges, rainfall, or stream gauges in the region. And so we're going to try and put together, specific steps like in the next 5 years, develop FMEs that add 10 flood gauges to the region, not just a broad increase.
Travis?
Yes.
Just to go back real quick to that FME for small communities thing, and this is just a brief overview. So we've had some questions about it regarding who's doing the work, because the RPG is supposed to be leading this, and from all intents and purposes, you're the ones that are ranking them, you're the ones that are identifying the FMEs that you would like TWDB to do, and then from the start to end within this first year cycle, which the FME will start this year and end before the draft plan is due. That way it can be implemented into the draft plan. So it's supposed to be plug and play as soon as the scope of work, as well as the community affirmation form is supposed to go directly into the flood plan. So whenever we're talking about this, the RPG has all the power. So when y'all are thinking about ranking, and Travis will probably talk about this more, and I'll talk about this more at the next RPG. When y'all are thinking about ranking, make sure to think about that, because for the first cycle, the first 5-year cycle, there are only 2 done. So from now until the end of this cycle, right now, 2 projects will be submitted for TWDB to do. And then after that, we'll be using that rank list to go through them. So just something to consider when y'all are thinking about the FMEs that have been submitted, thinking about the FMEs that are going to be submitted for the regional flood plan. When we're thinking about this, these are communities that can't afford to do it themselves, and that the tech consultant won't be doing for them. But that's all I wanted to say.
Broadly speaking, there are 3 paths an FME can take at this time. There is submitting for funding by themselves. There is getting them performed by by us as a technical consultant, by the RFPG under the tasks that we have, and then submitting the tasks to TWDB that's upcoming in March. And so those are the three ways that these FMEs really get performed and get funding. And so that's kind of the road plan for those. And that's why these goals are kind of important, is to say, guide those recommendations and the ones we want them to get done. This is one of the most important maps from the previous cycle. This is the communities that have the most identified structures at risk. So when we look at target communities, this is kind of the ones we want to look at. There are a lot of cases in which there is a small amount of risk or nearby to other communities, but when it comes to making the most significant impact, these are the ones that are identified. This was primarily done through the flood quilt in the previous cycle, and so there are some certain limitations to the specificity of the modeling, especially outside of El Paso, the city, and the county. But these numbers are broadly consistent when it comes to ranking. So when we say target communities, oftentimes these are the ones we're looking at as the most pressing ones. The other thing is the ones we're recommending to TWDB are primarily for communities that can't afford or aren't able to do it themselves. So we're often looking at places that are CDPs or smaller communities that don't have that kind of structure or someone to apply on their behalf. El Paso County has been a real help and benefit to a lot of communities. They have several FMEs in there that benefit, communities that are smaller in their area. And so we probably would not be looking at those, but outside of El Paso County, primarily. But there are a lot of options here, and it's again going to depend on the rankings that you guys decide and the goals that we present.
Hey, Travis,
Yes.
Dave, do you have any way of knowing how many of these structures are actually critical, like hospitals, fire stations, and where
Yes, we
those
do.
communities have those critical facilities that are in the floodplain?
Yes, we do.
I'm sorry,
So-
say again.
Yes, we have.
We
that.
do.
That information
Yes, we
is,
have it.
you have it?
Yes.
Okay. And hopefully those communities are reacting in some favorable manner to try to problem solve or get help problem solving,
Yeah, that's the hope. Yes,
but not yet, huh?
not yet. The problem that we are having, Travis was talking about the goals and the surveys. The surveys, most of those communities have not responded, and we are using a lot of information from those surveys. And unfortunately, although we have requested them to reply to the surveys, they haven't done it. So you will see later the summary of the surveys. We haven't had much responses from the last one. We haven't had an increase on surveys because those communities are still, I don't think they see this as moving forward for them. But El Paso County and EP Water now with the PIP having these FMEs going forward now, I think they will see that there is hope for them for getting funding from TWDB for doing the FMEs that they cannot afford by themselves. And that will encourage them to be more and more participant on the road shows and also on the surveys, so we can have a more well-defined project for them.
But
Go ahead.
so one of the concerns also that they may, one of the concerns that these communities may also have is that, yes, we have the FMEs, we have the FMPs, but it's not a 100% grant. If there is a contributing portion from the sponsor, which they may not have. So that's something that we need to keep in mind, and we need to find a way of how we can help them. Because even if they want to, they don't have the matching fund.
Yeah.
They're not gonna be able to do it. And if they do, how are they gonna pay for that?
Yeah.
So that's something, yes, the money is, it's great to participate in these programs and apply for the grants, but if we don't have a matching fund, then it's not something that, it's still not something that's feasible.
No, I totally understand. It's like if all the FMEs that El Paso Water has are approved by TWD, you won't have enough money for coverage. No, I totally understand. Yes.
I think if you know which facilities have the businesses or whatever, the critical businesses in the floodplain, you might be able to use that as leverage to try to motivate them to respond,
Yes.
you know, and say, hey, here's some critical stuff that you've got inside your community that really needs to have some solution. And maybe use that, like I said, as some kind of leverage, as maybe to get a response from them where they haven't responded before.
Yeah, like Travis said, we have that information, so we can direct communication with them, let them know we have that information, that we have this critical facility within the floodplain.
Yeah.
And it would be good at least to have information from them through these surveys that won't take too long for them to fill them out, at least to start the process and see how we can help them.
Yeah, down the road, there always could be more grants too, you know, that don't require matching funds. And I kind of hope for that. You know, we don't know if it'll happen or not with the billions of dollars that are now allocated to water, you know, or to flood, you know, whatever. So
That would be
there's a
great.
possibility, you know.
Everybody.
I think it's always possible, especially for critical assets.
Well, at least to be ready, if that happens, to have it
To be ready.
work done.
I agree.
There's also one of the things that was raised on one of the um, technical conference calls earlier this year, or even last year, I'd have to check my notes, is the cost of the application. Even if the application, you know, if they have the matching funds for the grant, they have to choose, well, do we save that money for the grant and try and get the application, do it ourselves, or do we pay for, you know, support in the application? And it's not just a quick thing to say, hey, you know, here's what you do. There's a lot of materials that you have to collect. And then every fifth cycle, they do remove the previous cycle's applications from it if they haven't been selected yet. And so just because you submit in one cycle, there are 2-year cycles, doesn't mean the project's, you know, there and ready for the second cycle. And it was raised as a concern. It's like, hey, you know, if something's not priority for one of these large communities and it falls off this eligibility for the fifth, you know, it's still going to be important for these smaller communities to get it done, but they don't necessarily have the budget to reapply every year to see where they would be in the rankings, just to know how they could even get that funding. And it's been discussed with TWDB in previous meetings, you know, some sort of, you know, grace period for smaller communities or continuation of projects for communities deemed to be rural or small communities that wouldn't have that budget. So it's been something that's been raised before, but yeah, it's a valid concern that, you know, we had a meeting with Hudspeth County earlier this year where we discussed NFIP and CRS, and I do believe they are, you know, participating in the NFIP, but when we raised the topic of the community rating system, which has the benefit of reducing flood insurance costs, the county judge said, hey, no one buys flood insurance. We can't afford flood insurance. You know, it's a great program. It'd be great to see, but first we got to buy flood insurance before we can even consider getting the discount. And it just speaks to the difficulty that a lot of these communities have. So as we talk about communities at different sizes and limitations, we do have some goals for them depending on size. For communities with structures at risk just above 50. So these are, you know, either communities that aren't at risk or aren't very large. We want participation in the regional flood plan, roadshows, meetings, survey responses. We really want participation in the National Flood Insurance Program. There are recommended ordinances that they can adopt, so it should be a relatively simple process to get through that. We're talking to communities and sending this information out. Participation in the CRS, again, you know, that flood insurance discount can be really beneficial for communities that are struggling. And then education on stormwater standards. For communities that are larger and often have more risks, an active stormwater master plan, a stormwater master plan that recommends FMEs, FMPs, and FMSs to the RFPG so we can make sure that their projects are eligible for funding. A stormwater master plan that aligns with the goals to make sure that this is, something that we all agree is beneficial moving forward. An asset management program, once we have infrastructure that's constructed out there to make sure that we know the status of it, that it's being taken care of and remains in good condition. So we're not looking at just an unexpected rehabilitation down the line. And then a flood emergency plan. With those things, we think that's going to be a good basis to start to keep flooding and stormwater infrastructure in front of everyone's mind and make sure that when there are availabilities for funding or when there are new projects that we can include, that we can reach out to those communities and get those additions. And so here are some of the, an example of something that we'd change. Again, a lot of this relies on survey responses to address these. A lot of it relies on self-reporting. Increased responses from communities over the previous cycle is one of the goals here. We get a little bit more uptake, a little bit more response seemingly every time we reach out. But it's still something that we're trying to encourage. And it's going to require consistent outreach, to identify risk and benefits of participation and get support. One of the things we noticed most strikingly in the most recent survey, and Luis is going to touch on this later, is that Alpine really galvanized and really came out when it came to surveys because they had just had a significant flood event that had flooded one of the main roads in their community, and so they all were aware of that. They all saw the impact of it. It wasn't damaging, but it was just irritating enough for them to be like, okay, this is something we need to address before it gets back. And so one of the things we want to look at is finding a way to make the surveys more time appropriate to when people are doing that. Right now, we've been doing the surveys every cycle. Just so, hey, this is our survey period, and then hopefully they have pictures from that. The difference in response between communities that didn't see any storm events to Alpine who had a storm event right after we released the survey, right before the roadshow, we really got some engagement. And so that's kind of what we're looking for. But then we go back to the goals here. We can see a couple of the specifics things. So short-term versus urgent, increase entity and public stakeholder participation. We want to make sure that that's there. And then having a list of communities that we're targeting instead of just saying, hey, all of the RFPG area, we're saying these are the communities that we want to target. And so here are a couple of the ones that are primarily measured on RFPG survey responses and FIP participation. We can scour, Municode libraries and look through ordinances, but the people we're going to know and get the best response for are going to be people in those communities who know whether they have it or not. And that goes for a lot of these number of flood gauges, any flood warnings in the areas, community-led flood outreach and awareness programs. By nature of not being in those communities, it's difficult to understand what they do. And that's something that would be really important to, say, the CRS goals. And so this is, a summary of the plans we have for goals. As this is the last slide before the next agenda item, are there any comments or questions?
I have a question. On slide 6, you had education on stormwater standards. So what is that you have in mind here? Because every county, every city has different standards. So what is it that you have in mind?
So it's mostly for communities that don't have the NFIP minimums. There is actually a template ordinance, several template ordinances on the TWDB website that are available for communities to adopt. You make a couple changes that list your specific communities and your contacts and who will be the CFM, that kind of thing. But when we talked to communities, they weren't aware of it. They didn't have like, oh, where are we going to get these standards from? Do we just go and look at, surrounding communities? And so that's kind of what we mean when it comes to standards that we can recommend. And then any increase in standards above and beyond that as we come to recognize what are the things that we want to improve. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next agenda items. This will be number 11, and Luis is going to handle this.
Rod?
Luis?
Okay, thank you, Travis. So this is an update to task 4. This is for the identification of FMEs, FMPs, and FMSs. That's for chapter 4. We have to prepare a standalone chapter. It includes work from task 4A and 4C to include analysis and assessment used to identify potential FMEs, FMSs, FMPs, and all technical analysis evaluated FMPs and FMSs to be included in the 2028 regional flood plan. So what we have been doing is we have been collecting information from the surveys. So like I said before, all the information that we are collecting from the surveys and developing also the goals, we're using that for helping us to develop new FMEs, FMPs, and FMSs. We're also working on the flood quilt. We are comparing the cycle 1 inundation areas with the new cycle. So all those new areas that were not identified in the first cycle, we are going to study those areas for potential FMEs, FMPs, and FMSs. We are also working on the road shows. On the road shows, we are collecting data from the communities. Like, for instance, you can see at the presentation, the report from PBS&J, that is an old report from City of Alpine, that was collected at the road show in City of Alpine. When we contact them before, they didn't know about this report. And then they were able to find out, looking at their own archives, that they have this report. So we are using all this information to developing potential projects. And also at the road shows, we were able to talk with City of Alpine of areas of conflict, areas that they have problems with inundation. And they gave us some ideas of where they think that the solution should be taking place. So potential areas for detention and retention to avoid flooding within the City of Alpine. So if you have any question, any comment, that's all I have right now. We are also working on the criteria for developing those, for studying the FMEs, FMPs, and FMSs. So we're working also on the criteria while we are looking for new projects. Next slide.
I have a quick question. In your experience, what you've seen so far, how much do the new solar fields that are being built are affecting flood or drainage patterns? Because in the next few years, Paso Electric is going to build solar fields in many places. I see locations in Favens, San Elizario, and they're pretty large, 700 acres, something, or larger. How much are these renewable energy developments affecting?
We haven't done, no, we haven't studied yet.
Okay.
We have done in the past analysis of no adverse impact, because usually in the San Antonio area, and Monica has done those, because they were putting those nearby dam structures. So we were studying that there was no adverse impact to the dam. And we end up, and Monica, correct me if I'm wrong, there was no adverse impact for those locations that we were putting the solar fields. So that's that's the real experience that we have with those fields.
Have you seen or heard any kind of impacts?
No, well, we had issues at the Newman plant. they started clearing out the area south of the plant. And the rains back in June and July just completely, the water went when
Well,
we
depends-
didn't plan it.
Depends the previous land use that you have, and if you are removing a lot of vegetation, and then you have only bare soil, yes, you will have a lot of that problem. In our case, when we were doing this for dams, we're on areas that we didn't have vegetation. Well, there was no trees or detention, so it didn't.
So Tara,
It's good
and I'm not familiar how this solar,
before you put the stuff.
farms are built, but do they have like a concrete slab, a large concrete slab, and these are placed on top, or?
Not on the, not the solar panels. They go, there's an infrastructure on the ground, but they are pretty much covered in soil, the ground. But the removing of the vegetation, the initial stages, I guess, of the construction is, it just modifies the land completely.
So then would that be considered development, and would they need to follow certain standards? Because you're modifying drainage patterns so that you have to look at the no adverse impact. And also, since there's different soil conditions, then there's different runoff coefficients that need to be considered, and you may need to be retaining some of that developed runoff, let's call it. And we have Oscar Villalobos on the board, who's our floodplain administrator. Maybe, I don't know if you can speak to that, Oscar.
I'm sorry, I was just received the message and I wasn't paying attention. Can you go ahead and ask the question again?
Yeah, so we're talking about the solar farms. How there's, there's after it be land, right, undeveloped land, and then they remove vegetation, then they have to do grading and different things. So there's different soil conditions now. There's different runoff coefficients, et cetera, et cetera. So of course, there should be a no adverse impact, but maybe do they need to be following the standards that we have and creating retention, et cetera?
I mean, technically they should. I mean, they should be following our standards. Of course, we want that if they're developing an area, undeveloped area, if it's an open space, for example, they need to bring that up to their natural state as well, and not create adverse impact and all that. But the developer should be following our standards for that instance.
So then it is considered a development.
Yeah, and retention ponds commensurate with acreage.
Right.
Yeah.
All that.
Yeah, the last thing you want is a lawsuit, sending water.
Yeah. And all those fields, they have retention ponds built into them, but while they are being built, if it rains a lot,
That historic runoff.
Well,
They have to become permanent solutions, not temporary. And also it depends on where, you're building, because you mentioned Sunnyside and other communities that have different standards, and that they're not necessarily have to comply with El Paso, but definitely El Paso County.
Okay.
I think Travis next agenda item.
Sounds good. So next one is the technical memorandum. So the main point here is that it is due January 7th, which is right after the holidays. And I'm reluctant to say, hey, let's meet right before that. And so we are going to try and meet December 3rd is what's scheduled. And we'll get the tech memo out to you 7 days before that. And so while we will have almost a full month to do comments, we would hope that when we get that to you, you're able to make time to do a review of it and make the comments that are needed so that we can get it approved pending comments, so that no one has to come in last minute in January to approve this. That's the main thing here, is just to highlight that we will be sending a significant amount of materials in the tech memo. I believe it was about a dozen pages of text last cycle, and then tables for the most part. But we'll be sending that out before the next meeting and hope to get your comments on it before we send it to TWDB.
Travis, how do you plan on distributing it 7 days prior?
So the same way we've been distributing the meeting materials previously, I will send them to Aaron. Aaron will post them on the website, and then that'll be available for anyone to access, including members of the public.
Okay.
Is there a different way you'd prefer to receive those?
No, that's fine. I was just asking how you plan on doing it.
Okay. Yeah, if anyone is anticipating any difficulty in accessing those, reach out. We can definitely make sure to get them to you a different way, whether it's through a file sharing program or, even a hard drive at some point.
Nick, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, I haven't checked back my notes. Have we, has the RPG approved, task 2B methodology yet? I know that y'all have submitted, I just want to make sure before we start reviewing it, has the RPG reviewed the new task 2 methodology and approved the methodology for tech memo?
I don't believe so. I think we're gonna have to look at that. For me, I don't think it's something we.
I don't think we have that.
Was that an email Breen just sent out most recently regarding the acceptance of the methodology that she?
So that was, so we had that conversation to discuss the methodology that y'all are proposing. That is before the tech memo was supposed to come out. The RPG is supposed to review the methodology and then approve it. And then the tech consultant is supposed to then send it to TWB for further review and approval. So that before it can be sent to TWB, it needs to be approved in an RPG meeting. I guess I'm not remembering at a time when task 2B has been approved by the body, but I just did want to put that out there. We might have to put, or that might be something that is shoehorned in the next meeting as approval. So just to put that on your radar.
Okay. Thank you.
That would require another meeting before December 3rd in order to get that approved if there needs to be a vote, because I don't believe there has been a vote on it. And that would mean we would need to, Nick, if we had sent out the 2B methodology memo previously, would that count for 7 days availability, or would it need to be posted specifically for this meeting?
Are you talking about?
Sorry, not 7 days, but 3 days. Assuming no changes to the memo.
Well, you need to have the updated memo first with new methodology and the additional context that
comment, yeah,
that requested. Then that would be posted on the RPG website 3 days prior to the meeting, and then that would then need to be posted. I guess the meeting would need to be posted 7 days. So if you were to have post the next meeting, it could theoretically be next week if you have the time to get that methodology done. But that's up to the body if they have the availability. But yeah. And apologies for not catching that. I was thinking through it in my head and realized we hadn't done that.
Is that something you want to try and push for next week, Travis?
Ideally, if you guys are able to meet next week, in order for a meeting to happen next week, we would have to publish an agenda this week. I don't think I could publish an agenda tonight. So it would probably be tomorrow, in which case the meeting would take place on Friday. If that's something people are available to do. Otherwise, we're probably going to need to send out a poll for availability dates.
And this vote that we're talking about can't happen December 3rd.
That would be too late. We would either have to do another meeting. We would have to do another meeting in between December 3rd and January 7th to approve the tech memo, because the 2B approval needs to be done before the tech memo. 'Cause if you guys don't approve the methodology, then we can't use that methodology to create the tech memo.
How about availability on Friday?
I'm not,
You are not.
I'm not.
Not-
There's forum.
Meeting.
Meeting, Tara is, are you? Me?
I can be there.
We have 3 in person. What about the voting members online?
How many voting members online would be available next Friday for a quick meeting to pass this tech memo? And of course, early bird gets the worm, so shoot
What,
for the morning.
why don't we do a Google Doodle
A doodle poll?
for
Okay,
Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
Friday and then the following Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, because I think there's not an issue if we get it done the following week, early in the
No,
following
it's-
week. We just need to get it done before the 3rd.
Correct.
So they can have it approved before they do the tech.
Correct, and
Okay.
we will fast track it on our end to make sure our travel is kind of not happening anymore. So I will make sure that that process is taken care of on our end. That way y'all have enough time to get the technical approved. So whenever y'all are available.
So
do that.
why don't we do 14, 17, 18, 19? That'd be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay,
And that can also be the only agenda item as well. There does not need to be, well, the public comment, but besides that, that can be the agenda item.
understood. So you're just, we're scratching Friday is what you're saying, Dave?
Well, we can put Friday in the poll and just see what the answers are.
Okay.
Formal answers. And if enough people answer, we can do Friday. I don't have any problem which day it is, whatever day we can get a quorum.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the key.
I'm out of town till the 20th,
Oh,
actually till the 19th.
so you're gone.
But, yeah, I'm gone, but, I mean, if there's quorum, there's quorum.
And the only thing we're gonna be looking at is 2B, so. Okay. General. Okay. So you're gonna do that?
Yes, sir.
I was looking back through the minutes and I couldn't find any place for 2B.
Yeah, I was.
There's nothing, yeah. There's nothing.
Okay. That's good. Thank you for bringing that up, Nick. We'll get that addressed.
Yeah, it was on the agenda in September, but the only thing we did was an update of 2B. But there was no approval.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to move on to the next slides then, and this is going to be Luis. Are you there, Luis?
Yes, yeah. So this is for item number 13, and this is a summary of the community outreach surveys. As I mentioned before, we had some additional surveys, and like Ray was saying, most of the surveys are coming from Brewster County and City of Alpine because they have recently had the flood event. It's like you usually respond to a survey when you have an issue that is bothering very recently or very often, like traffic. If anyone has a survey for traffic, everybody will be responding because you have problems with traffic almost every day. But with flooding, you forget. So these are the general public survey results. We have now 23 surveys. So we have 3 more surveys from the last time, but from those 3 surveys, 2 are invalid. So 2 were from the same IP address, and they didn't have enough information. They didn't have emails, names. They were lacking a lot of information. So only 1 was usable, and it was from City of El Paso. Next, please. From the community representative, we were having 17, now we have 21 surveys. So now we have 3 more from from El Paso and El Paso County, and 1 extra from Brewster County. So this is the one that we are having more responses and they are more complete. And it's good because we are receiving with the information of the person who is doing the survey, email, phone number. So if we have any question, we can contact them. So they are very complete. So we appreciate all your help. The next one, please. That the finance representative results is survey. And this one we went from 4 to 5, so we only have one extra survey that was completed in the last month. But unfortunately, that one is also invalid. There is not enough information. We don't know who did it, which title had, and had a lot of missing information. So it's not going to help us. That's all I have for the summary of the surveys. We will keep pushing. I think we will be using what you were proposing about talking about critical facilities, leveraging that with those communities and see if we have a better response from those communities. And we will keep you posted on the surveys because they are very useful for us. With that, I don't know if you have any questions, comments.
We already talked about the next agenda.
Yeah.
That is the last agenda item.
Yeah.
May come.
Very much that page for item 14. Any further discussion on that one?
There's a typo there. It says December 5th, it's December 3rd.
Yeah, should be the third.
And then one before that, based on the poll.
Correct.
Okay.
Anything else? Any final comments? With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. We do have an open house going on here at 5, so if you're in the area or you need to come down, please come down. We'll be here at age 12. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Someone just left. They went to